Amadwa, upon you, Jerusalem, stand face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barak Yahweh Basham Yehoshai Asherah Natamanawe Hashabak Bashalawam the Wada Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the Sabbath and peace. Thank you, so be it. The Ali Ma'ah Shariah Machad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Mayim Ye Oh Harayim Mayan Yabawa Azariah Yabawa Mayahu Shashab Shemayim Waratazah Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yela Yanawam Shashramarka Hana La Yanawam Wala Yashan Shashramar Yashralib Yahweh Shamaria Yahweh Tazalia Ayub Yad Yim Yad Yawamam Hashamash La Hakaya Wayarak La Balayela Yahweh Yashamaria Makau Rai Yashama Napashya Yahweh Yashama Habalakya Wabawa Ayat My Thai wa Aid I will Basham Yehoshai the Wada Aman.
Psalms 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharallah, hear, O Israel. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawe Shabbat Shemayim Kodash Hayye Shanke Yahweh Malakwaka Sabbath Retazawanke Hayye Aisha Baratiza Kabashamayim Natamanawa Lakham Yawam Zad Wasalak Nawa Kabawat Nawa Kasalak Nawa Kabawat Yanawa Wala Abiyar Nawa Oh Nasayawan Abo Hawashinawa Marai Kaye Laka Hamalakwat Wa'ala Wathaparat Waiwalam Aman.
Matthew 6 and 9. After this manner, therefore, pray, Our Father, which art in thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'ashara Mutazawaf, the Ten Commandments. La ya hayy la kay la hayam akharim al pinyat la fa shay la kay paso wala fa badam la la kwaka shamwe yahweh la hayka la shawat zakar af hayawam hashabat La Kodashwa Kabad Abiyaka wa Amaka La Atharatazak La Athana'at La Athaganab La Athanat Shakur La Athachamad Ko Asherah La Ra'aika Aman.
Exodus 22. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visited the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gate. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and holiday. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may belong upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Amen. Yeshabwa, be seated. Barakateh Hawa, by Shimi Hawa Shai, Sharan, and an hour part of Gapan, Wada Aman. La Yahawa by Shimi Hawa Shai, Yashra. English translation: Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Amadwa, Panyua, Jerusalem, stay in the face, Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakawam, Abiyah, Wanawa, Aliyawan, Malek, Shal, Shamayim, Waratiza, Wakod, Dabarium, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawe, Arawanawe, Ahabnawe, Hapala, Yawa Aitiza, Yahawashad, Zakarnawe, Yahweh, Bartazawan, Ainka, Yash'ala, Izarnawe, Bane, Wasa, Yash'ala, O Nanawe, Yam Yam, Aifa, Kayawamyam, Makwadam, Babakusha, Shalak, Mike Allah, Watazwadak, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapharnawa, Washamab, Elnawa, Bakwa, Shalak, Haroka, Shao, Yahweh, Lanawa, Lalamadnawa, Rabiam, Kakamab, Tabawana, Wada Ike, Shao, the Barka, Basham, Yahweh, the Wada, Them Yad, Why Willam, Man. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, Most High, we beg you right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathan Lanawa, Hat Tawarat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathan Lanawa, Award, Lara Awat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathan Lanawa, Karan, Ha'ayo, Lakorat, Ha'ain. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathan Manawa, Hasheman, Zayat, Lamashak, Yasha'ala, Yeshabwa. Be seated. All right, so Shalom Yasharella.
One.
All right, so Shalom everybody here in the Philly School. Shalom everybody watching us on live stream, and Shalom everyone listening in on teleconference. Welcome to Ha Yasharella Kanas, or the Congregation of Israel, where we teach that the so-called Black, Latin, Native Americans from North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean are indeed the lost 12 tribes of Israel now found, and that we come out of this lower state, economically, religiously, by turning back to these commandments that we broke. And the way we do that, of course, is by following Jesus Christ as our example. So today, one way of doing that is keeping the Sabbath holy, and we're keeping the Sabbath holy today by coming together in a holy convocation. In our particular branch of Christ, we like to do a Sabbath service. This Sabbath, we're going to be going through the Maccabees, Second Maccabees, chapter 7 and chapter 8. Second Maccabees 7 and 8 is going to be our reading for today. And, my name is Nabian Zrababal. I'll be doing the service today. So once again, Second Maccabees 7 and 8 is going to be our reading for today. So for your records, you can just write down that today, according to the Gregorian calendar, would be the February 24th, 2018. But according to our calendar, it would be the 12th month and the 10th day. Again, the 12th month and the 10th day. I'm sorry, not the 10th day, the 9th day. No, I really got it backwards. It's actually the 11th day. Yeah, the 12th month and the 11th day. Sorry about that. All right, so let's go to the Apocrypha. Let's go to Second Maccabees, chapter 7. So when we read last time, we're reading about the brother Eleazar, who was being afflicted by the Greeks at that time, and being an elder man, right, over in his 90s, and he was well respected amongst our ancestors in Jewry back then. They were trying to use him to get many other of Israel to compromise their values, their righteous values in the Most High, by getting him to convert to the Greco-Roman way, style, custom. And in his old age, he said, I'm still going to maintain my integrity and do what you will, you know. I'm even going to avoid the appearance of evil, since they want to try to get him to eat clean food, but make it look like he was eating with them, which people knew they commonly ate unclean meats, which was against our law. So they even tried to make a deal with him and say, look, we'll give you clean food. Just sit and eat with us so that that image can be out there that, is sitting and breaking bread with us, and it's okay. He said, even with that, he's going to turn the young men and women away from the Most High. They see me in my old age doing this. So He died valiantly for the law of the Most High and didn't compromise himself. And we have his record. Now we're going to read about a woman and her 7 sons in this chapter, and her bravery standing up against this oppression as well, right? And it's just being a chapter to really meditate on, as is the previous, as far as putting yourself in these people's situation and saying, wow, would I have that level of zeal and valiantness, thinking beyond my own life, thinking about the lives of others, and still stand this way, still stand for righteousness when I'm pushed to resist unto blood. Like the scripture says in Hebrews chapter 12. You know, the hope is that, of course, we just don't know. We hope that we would. Just don't want to put it out there like that, because remember what Peter, remember the lesson that Peter learned, where he put it out there in word. He said, oh, I would never deny you, Christ. Christ said, oh, you know, that's not how it's going to go down. So while Peter had the best intentions when he was in a situation, you know, that he denied Christ before the cock crowed twice. But even still, Yahushua forgave him, right? Still gave him that great office of being the rock upon which the church would be founded. So let's learn from that, and let's just say that we pray that we would stand for righteousness, even if we were put in great danger, as our forefathers and foremothers did, like we've been reading about. So this is Hebrews chapter 12 in verse 4. I'll just read this real quick before we start. Hebrews 12 and 4. And it reads, ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. So no matter what we face in this life, striving to do the right thing, keeping the commandments, you just remember it hasn't come to this point. So it could be a whole lot worse. Not to make light of whatever affliction that you're going through, because, you know, mental affliction can be its own challenge, right? Especially when it comes to this world and how pervasive sin is and how it's coming at you through so many different mediums. Just remember, it hasn't come to you, you know, someone having a gun to your head or a sword to your neck, right? Or a knife, that it could get a lot worse. And that whatever it is that you are going through, that you can handle it. As 1 Corinthians 10:13 tells us, right? They never put something upon us that we're not able to deal with at any given time. And we have to believe that scripture. Even though it may not feel that way, know that it's true. So these brothers and sisters clearly were ready, and they stood, as we're going to read, stood that test and strove against sin, even unto death. And we see here that it's a memorial recorded forever in the Most High's word that they did this, as we read it right now today and are inspired by it. So 2 Maccabees chapter 7 in verse 1. It says, and it came to pass that 7 brethren with their mother were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourge and whips. So this is the beginning of, like I said, this sister and her 7 sons, how they were being tested. Like I said, we read about Eleazar before, being 90 years old. Now you have a mother with her 7 sons being forced to eat unclean meat. You know, today we may say, you know, oh, you know, it's just whatever, you know, whatever you pray over, God blessed it, right? But look at how serious they're taking the Most High's law. See, this is a serious deal, right? When it comes to what you put in your body. So the Most High's law does not be taken lightly, whether it's dietary law, whether it's law pertaining to your own body, whether it's law pertaining to, you know, your possession, how you deal with your land, your cattle, how you deal with your own neighbor. These things are very important. And we see here that it's a big deal for the Greeks to try to what? Break our spirits so that they can get us to compromise our values, which will then give them, I should say, the advantage over us. Verse 2. But one of them that spake first said thus, what wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers. Wow, so see that? See that courage? Not only amongst the mother, but even her sons, right? Clearly being raised right according to righteousness. It says in verse 3, then the king, being in a rage, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot, which forthwith being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first, and to cut off the utmost parts of his body, the rest of his brethren and his mother looking on. So now they said, whoever spoke that first, cut out their tongue, and let's get these pans and cauldrons ready, which what they're going to do is just set up a vat and get it hot. It's going to be another device they want to use to torture our people here, right?
Yeah, even like in this modern day now, I know doing slavery, a slave find out certain things or whatever he wanted to tell the other slave, and they would cut the person's tongue out.
Mm-hmm.
So Esau did that before, and he did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like Romans 15:4 says, right? Things written aforetime, written for our learning. We through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. And we can look at this like we were talking about in the class last night, going into when we see these different nations out here today, we can read about them in the scripture beginning and their development. We can see, oh, okay, they're just doing the same thing now that they were doing back then, right? Like they even do today with our people. You may not see it so much out in the open now, but they still do with our people as far as the way that they abuse us in prison, right? If we're locked up or something, or even the abuse they even give to other dark nations that are afar, right? Through their what do they call them? What's the Guantanamo Bay? What's that place? What are those places called? Not concentration camps. No. Places where they torture people, like Guantanamo Bay, and they have to get a place in Poland where they do what they have a fancy name for rendition, right? And even Isaiah calls them out on that as far as them not releasing the house of their prisoners, right? It's one thing to judge someone for wrongdoing, but they go above and beyond, right? Just to prove a point, or just to dominate through fear, as opposed to rule by justice. So all these things are being recorded up in the heavens. They got the answer for all these things that they've done throughout the earth. To our people, namely, even what they've done to others. So let's continue on. It says in verse 5, now when he was thus maimed in all his members, he commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire and to be fried in the pan. So they maimed his members, right? This one that spoke up first of her sons, and it says, and it commanded to be brought to the fire and to be fried in the pan. And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space dispersed, they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully, saying thus. So all the while that they're getting this pan, this heat ready, right? Just picture this, right? Picture the fear and the dread, right? Of knowing that you have to face something like this. But yet and still you have your family there cheering you on, right? Like it says, exhorting one another and the mother to die manfully, saying this. They said this to the young man. Verse 6, the Lord God looketh upon us, and in truth had comfort in us, as Moses in his song, which witnessed to our faces, rather to their faces, declaring, saying, he shall be comforted in his servants. Right? So this here in verse 6, remember the song of Moses back in Deuteronomy. Right? So they're looking to things written before their time, but things to comfort them. Just like we quoted earlier, we referred to earlier in Romans 15:4. So they're doing this same thing, given this dire circumstance that they're in, being examined by these Greeks. So let's get that real quick. What happened?
I'm talking about, where's that?
I'm about to get it now.
Okay.
You want to read it?
No, go ahead. I just want to make
I'm going to call it, and if you can read it, Baba Kusha. You can read Deuteronomy 32. And you can just read verse 36.
Deuteronomy 32, verse 36. For the Lord shall judge his people and repent himself for his servant when he seeth that their power is gone and there is none shut up or left.
Mm-hmm. This whole song is good to read, but you see them going back to that song. So our songs weren't just, for entertainment or for feel good or for, just romantic purposes. They served that higher purpose where it showed forth that love we had for the Most High, and to show forth His wisdom and the comfort and protection He provide for us throughout the ages. We can sing these songs even right now for things that we face, right? Go back to them and read them. Like I know Kanyao Kanan, that's something he's quite fond of doing, reading through the Psalms, even going through them in the ancient tongue, right, for motivation during the week. He always talks about that on the Sabbath service when he comes. So they're doing the same, because it's the hardest time. It's most difficult to sing songs of praise when you're going through heavy affliction like this, right? Even the affliction we go through now, it's hard to sing songs and sing praise unto the Lord when you're going through hell, right? But to still do it, right? That has a great reward in heaven. If you can muster the strength and to make that choice, knowing that this is only something to prove you, to make you better. And like I always say, no matter how bad it gets in this setup, because just you see information coming out about them trying to bring a one world government and send us to concentration camps and this, that, and third, right? Try to bring it, try to set up a World War II Germany scenario here in America, right? You see information coming out about this, over the last couple of decades. I always say this, we don't know when Christ is going to come back, but if they don't lay a hand on us and we endure to the end, we win. If we endure to the end and they decide to lay hands on us physically and cause harm to us, we get an even better resurrection. So we either win or we win some more, right? The worse they make it for us, the better our resurrection is, the greater honor we achieve. So it's a win-win no matter how you look at it for us, as long as we stick to our guns and stay in the example of Christ, no matter what, no matter how bad it may get before Christ comes back, right? That's the hope that we have, and that's the will that we know will be achieved on us if we indeed do it.
Yeah, just like in Psalms 137 and 3.
What's this link with?
No, it said, about the songs and stuff like that. It
Oh.
says it's hard to sing all these songs and we're going through all this hell. So when we sing Psalms 137 and 3, for they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. So, just by even on a daily basis, your brothers and sisters out there, walking the street and their head is down, going through all kind of hell and all kind of affliction. And they want us to be happy.
Mm-hmm. So, Second Maccabees 7:7, it says, so when the first was dead after this manner, so they encouraged him to be courageous even until his death, right? This one of the sons of the family. So when this first was dead after this manner, they brought the second to make him a mocking stock. When they had pulled off the skin of his head with the hair, they asked him, Will thou eat therefore? Rather, will thou eat before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body? So they're picking off the hair of his scalp. Picture this, man. This was your family. This was you going through this. I know it's hard to do. Like I said, this is something just to consider. What would you do? That you know the truth and you're faced with this. Verse 8, but he answered in his own language and said, No, wherefore he also received the next torment in order as the former did. This is he answered in his own language. So he answered him back in the Hebrew, right? Showing forth his righteous pride and his heritage and where he comes from, right? Like we see Paul using that for effect when he was talking to the people in the Hebrew tongue and teaching them about Christ. We see he did this to show forth that what he wasn't going to compromise who he was, his values, his culture, right? Even in this great pain that he was put through. Verse 9, and when he was at the last gasp, he said, Thou like a fury takest us out of this present life. But the King of the world shall raise us up, who have died for his laws unto everlasting life. Wow, so he died as valiantly as his brother, right? So when we read this, this is something that we can also be reminded of here, because Christ tells us this as well. With verse 9, we just read this in the Gospels, right? So we see that these young men are taking this wisdom to heart that we read not too long ago in Matthew. Let's get it again real quick. Matthew chapter 10. Matthew chapter 10 and verse 28. And Brother Daniel, if you could read that, Baba Kushan. Matthew chapter 10 and verse 28.
Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. Fear not them which kill the body, and are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell.
Right. So fear not them which are able to kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul. So they understand this, right? That these men that are torturing them, they can't destroy that which matters most, right? Which is their soul. They can try to get them to do that by what? Through pain, saying, okay, fine, I'll eat the swine's flesh, right? Which that will destroy their soul at this point. And it's heavy too, because remember we read this before in Maccabees about this being for a chastening of our nation. So even though we do righteously by the Most High, we know that as a nation, we're all going to feel the blunt of the Most High's judgment. Even the prophets of old, we saw they underwent suffering with the rest of their people, but the Most High usually would find a way for them. And even if they did meet death, we see that what it was given for them to be a better resurrection. They would achieve a better resurrection through the suffering that they underwent, right? Whether they died of natural causes after going through different afflictions and other temptations, or if they met their end at the hands of the heathen, right? Or even their own people that were off. So like I said, if you die of natural causes but stick to the Most High's commandment, you win. If you die at the hands of others that are wicked, laying hands upon you, your resurrection is even better. So let's continue on in verse 10. It says, after him was the third made a mocking stock. And it's crazy because they call it a mocking stock, but really they're the ones that are being laughed at as far as in the heavens. The joke is on them, even though it appears as though these Greeks had the advantage, right? Mutilating our people like this, right? And, destroying them against their will because they have the power in their hand. They don't realize that this abuse of power that they have is just going to be a judgment upon their own heads in the end. And yet and still, right? They haven't faced that full judgment as of yet, right? They may have gotten a taste of it now as far as their descendants now. He saw it's in the earth now. But that full judgment still doesn't come on board. And we know that will fully commence and begin to really fully take place when Christ makes the second coming. All these things we're reading about here. From this time until the things that we experience here in the Americas, our people, they all have to bear that judgment as individuals and as a nation. Thus saith the Lord. It says, I'll read verse 10 again. After him was the third made a mocking stock, and when he was required, he put out his tongue, and that right soon, holding forth his hands manfully, and said courageously, these I had from heaven, and for his laws I despise them, and from him I hope to receive them again. Wow. He said, yeah, you can take these physical things from me, right? But I know the Lord will give them back to me again, right? No matter what you try to take from me, I'll gain all from the Lord in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to read two scripture about, yes, they can take whatever stuff from you and things like that, cut out your tongue, cut out your arms, the legs, or whatever, so on and so forth. But like in Isaiah, 35 and 6, it says, then shall the lame man leap as an hart, and the tongue of the dumb.
Oh, you're going kind of fast. What's that? Call it out so everybody can hear.
Yeah, Isaiah 35 and 6.
This links with 11.
Yeah, or they can cut off your limbs and, cut out your tongue and things like that, Most that can restore all these things back to you.
Yeah.
Like in Isaiah 35 and 6. It says, then shall the lame man leap as an hart, and the tongue of the dumb sing. So the most that can restore these things back to you. And also Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3 verse 2. Yeah, Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3 verse 2, he says, in the sight of the unwise they seem to die, and their departure is taken for misery, and they're going from us to be utter destruction, but they are in peace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they seem like as if our lives here that meant nothing, to them.
Mm-hmm.
But we're at peace.
Mm-hmm. So verse 12, it says, insomuch that the king and they that were with him marvel at the young man's courage, that he nothing regarded the pains. Right? So, this being the next son in line, says that they marvel, saying, wow, look at this. Right? What caused them all this pain? And here he is still standing for his God, right? Still strong in the face of this punishment that we're putting them through. Now, when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fourth in like manner. So they're going right down the road. So when he was ready to die, he said thus, it is good being put to death by men to look for hope from power to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life. So once again, calling them out, saying, yeah, you guys have brought even more shame upon your head for harming me the same as you did my brothers. So this resurrection, we really have to be mindful of this, that this is a great thing the Most High is going to bring or give to those of us that walk in their straight and narrow path. You can just link up Daniel chapter 12. Daniel chapter 12, in verse 2. It's going into the resurrection that we always talk about in the New Testament, but we see it here in the Old Testament as well. All they were talking about in the New Testament is what the Old Testament already had said or had set forth. We just got more understanding about, okay, how we obtained that resurrection through Yahweh Shah Mashiach, Son of the Most High, made flesh. Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, it says, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Right? So many that are dead in that day when Christ comes back. Remember, it's two groups. You got those that are going to be that are alive and remain, those that are in the spirit world. That's going to be when that great judgment comes on the scene. Judgment upon our people and upon them. Right? That's when the books will be open. Right? As far as the records for all the souls in the earth, our people and strange nations, and them having to be judged for the right or wrong that they've done. So this is something that, we see that men try to do. Esau, especially through his technology, right? Wants to, scan everybody and, try to understand people's ins and outs and use, big data and surveillance and artificial intelligence to try to monitor people's whereabouts and their, physical makeup. They want to be like the Most High as far as even go beyond things they catch on camera. Know your thoughts, know your motivation before you even do stuff, right? They make, sci-fi about it, like pre-crime and stuff like that, but they're really trying to do that by really examining the flesh on a cellular level. All these things are pale in comparison to the in-depth insight the Most High has, right? Like it says in the scripture, they'll try to be like him, but they won't be him, right? They'll still fall short. And for all these things, they not to be judged. Let's continue on. Verse 15, afterward they brought the fifth also and mangled him. Then looked he unto the king and said, thou hast power over men, thou art corruptible. Thou doest what thou wilt, yet think not that our nation is forsaken of God. Right? See that? So we see here that the Most High will not forsake his people. Right? Even they're going through these horrible things, that what? They're still not going to be forsaken. And he knows this. You can even link up what Paul talks about in Romans chapter 11 and verse 1. And Kanyal Kanan, if you can read that, Baba Shah. Romans chapter 11 and verse 1. Another example of showing how Israel will not be forsaken.
Romans 11 and 1. I say then, that God cast away his people, God forbid, for I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin.
Right. So the question being put here, even in the New Testament, if God cast away his people, it says, God forbid, meaning no, he hasn't. Right? So these brothers, they know this, and as they're seeing their brothers get tormented, it's like they're pretty much getting more encouraged, seeing that, well, okay, they died manfully, I'm going to do the same, just like the rest of my brethren. Imagine if the first son, he had said, okay, fine, I'll eat the swine's flesh. We would hope that the rest of the sons would not do it. But we see that first son that went to the torment, he set the precedent, right? And so far, we see that all the other sons are following suit, standing for righteousness as opposed to, bending over backward and succumbing to the will of the Greeks so that they could live, for the rest of that life, looking at their everlasting life that they could achieve through the Most High. So it's a heavy thing to weigh in the balance. You really have to be spiritually minded to really see this, because the carnal man will look at this and go, "Oh, what's the big deal?" go through all that, have my scalp taken off, be put into a hot cauldron, right? Be forced to go to the flame. And give me that BLT. You know, no sweat. I'll eat it. That's how a carnal man would think. But for the spiritually minded man and woman, they look at this situation totally different, as they are. Like I said, just something really to look at, something to really consider. Say to yourself, wow, I haven't resisted unto blood. And if it came to that, would I have as much courage, as much faith as this family has, as we're reading right now? Just something to just to look at. Another verse you can link what we're reading here. You could also link Psalms chapter 9. Psalms chapter 9. Oops, too far. In verse 10. Brother Daniel, if you could read that, Baba Kusha. Psalms chapter 9 and verse 10. It's still linking with verse 16.
Chapter 9, verse 10. And they that know thy name will put their trust in thee. For thou, Lord, has not forsaken them that seek thee.
Right. So these Psalms are their motivation, right? Like I said, we can't emphasize the Romans 15:4 enough. We could do it without scriptures, but definitely for this chapter here. This is when all this stuff, really matters. Because, we reading the scriptures and kind of going through it in the Sabbath service or during the class, that's good and all. But really called to question when you're out there and you're faced with certain situations. Now you're being called to remember these things and to put them into practice. Like I use the metaphor as far as like a martial artist, right? You might go to martial arts, Shalom. You might go to martial arts and learn, different punches, different kicks, different techniques, right? Things of that nature. But now you're not going to be really brought to question. What you learn is not going to be brought to question until what? You're not in the streets, or you're in the subway, or you're going through something. You're forced to now use those same things you learn to defend yourself, defend your family, or defend someone else who's in need, right? Now you're going through your punches and kicks and holds, right? Whatever martial art that you're learning, now you got to put it to use, because now your life is on the line, or someone that you're concerned about, their life is on the line. Now you got to use it, right?
You can't forget everything when they teach and taught you, right?
Exactly. So how much more when it comes to what we learn when we come together for the classes and for the holy days, where we go out there and we're dealing with our family and friends who don't see this truth, strangers of our people that we just don't know, and of course the heathen, whether, like I said, whether it be, personal, professional environment, right? Out and about, taking care of things. You're going to be faced with situations you have to put the commandments into practice at all times, right? Especially in a dire circumstance like this family is in right now. But we see they're taking what they read, what they learned from youth, and putting it to practice, right? Knowing that they're going to obtain a better resurrection, even though their lives are being forced, or I should say they're being threatened with their lives by these Greeks, which as we see, they know that their life is more than just a beating heart, right? Or a brain that ticks. That their life is established through how they live, right? The commandments that they keep or break. That's what determines their life. That's why we read in Deuteronomy, and even Christ quotes it with being tempted by the devil, right? Man should not live by bread, right? Only, but by every word that proceeded from the mouth of the Lord. I'll just write down, or call those two verses. You can make a note of them. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8 in verse 3. Brother Gabar, if you can read that, and then we'll get the other link in the temptation of Christ after that. Brother Gabar, get Deuteronomy chapter 8. In verse 3. And I'll read that once everybody has it.
Sister Tiller, do you have it? Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 3. 8 and 3. Got it? Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 3. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doeth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of man live.
Right. So they understand this, that life is through the word, even though their lives are being threatened, right, by these Greeks, torturing them. Like I said, they've already gone through what he's the fourth son that we've gotten to so far. Just by them forcing them to what? Eat swine's flesh and them resisting. Right? That's why we started off with what? You're not resisting unto blood, striving against sin. So think about whatever it is that you're going to present it with. And as tough as it may be, because of peer pressure, because of society, because of all the different mediums through which wickedness is being bombarded at us, and just sit back and go, well, it's not as bad as me having a gun to my head and somebody saying, you better do this or else, right? So in all these things, whether it's that intense, just as intense as you just having that temptation due to, like I said, negative influence around you in this world, always remember that no matter what, you always have a choice to exercise, whether to do the right thing or to do the wrong thing, right? You always have, Shalom, you always have that choice. And we see here that they're exercising that choice even when their physical lives are on the line, because they know how important their spiritual lives are in the sight of God. So Christ quoted this same scripture in Deuteronomy. He was being tempted of the devil. Let's get that in Matthew. So let's go to Matthew now, during the time of when he's being tempted of the devil. Shalom.
Where we at?
So we're getting Matthew now, chapter 4. And Brother Malak, if you could get this, or read this rather. You can start from verse 1 and read down to 4. We'll see Christ talk about this same thing. Chapter 4. I want you to read 1 down to 4. Verse 4 is going to let us know when it comes to being tempted physically, how to overcome that. Whether you're faced with hunger, or in this case, forced with torture, your physical life being taken. Always remember this. Like I said, Christ is going to quote that same scripture we read in Deuteronomy, which is funny too, because a lot of so-called Christians want to say, oh, the law is over and done with, this, that, and the third. So why is Christ going right into the law when being tempted of the devil? That will let me know, or give me the thought that, well, I guess it's still useful for something. He's going to use this to combat the wiles of the devil himself. If we're going to be tempted in the same way that he is, I'm thinking, well, I could probably use something in Deuteronomy as well, right? I mean, that's what will make sense to me. But we've been told many lies.
Everybody there? Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit.
Call and read it. Call the chapter and verse.
Matthew chapter 4, verse 1. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungry. And when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread.
Right, so he's tempted him knowing that he's been fasting 40 days and nights, and said, yeah, if you be the Son of God, right, just change these stones and make them bread, right? So that you can, nourish yourself, right? It's been 40 days and nights. Because remember, Satan, he's no fool. He knows he has to come at us when we're at our weakest. We know he couldn't just come to Christ at any time. He had to come at him when he was at his weakest as far as the flesh. Right? After 40 days and nights of fasting.
Right.
But even still, look at how he responds to show his character. Read verse 4.
So he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God.
Right. So he went and quoted the same thing we read in Deuteronomy. Right? Man shall live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. Right. So this family knows this. Knows that, yeah, you can take my life away, my physical life away, but know that my spirit goes on. And the choices I make while in this physical body matter. No matter what you try to do to me physically to get me to eat this swine's flesh, which would what? Corrupt my soul, because it's against the Most High's commandment. Exactly. Let's go back to a 2 Maccabees 7. Let's continue on. 2 Maccabees 7 and verse 17. We're reading 2 Maccabees chapter 7 and chapter 8. And we said that at the end last week, remember? There's one in the bookshelf. There's an extra one in the and there's an extra one in the bookshelf. It's not. It doesn't have a red cover. It's got a blue cover. So, 2 Maccabees chapter 7 and verse 17, and it reads, "But abide a while, and behold this great power, how he will torment thee and thy seed. After him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die said, Be not deceived without cause. For we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our God. Therefore, marvelous things are done unto us." Right? So now this is something that's heavy to consider as well. So once again, we're in 2 Maccabees chapter 7, and we just read verse 18. 2 Maccabees 7 and verse 18. Just say come once you have it.
Second Maccabees, chapter 7.
Verse 18.
Say it again.
Right, you got it. I'm just saying, go to verse 18 in that chapter. So it says, once again, verse 18, after him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die, said, so this is the sixth son out of 7 sons. He's already seen his 5 brothers go to the torment, being forced to eat the swine's flesh, and all of them stood their ground and resisted.
You say second Maccabees, what chapter?
7. You said it. You got it right. Okay. After him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die, said, be not deceived without cause. For we suffer these things ourselves, having sinned against our God. Therefore marvelous things are done unto us. Right? So them clearly being a family that's righteous, they at the same time acknowledge that what? Even the righteous will face hardship for the sake of what all have chosen to do. Because remember, the Most High, while he judges us individually, he also judges us as a nation as well. Right? We always use the example as far as you have a classroom, the teacher leaves the room for a second and says, look, I'm going to go down the hallway, I'll be right back. Continue doing your seat work. The teacher leaves. You might have the 1 or 2 kids that, do the right thing. Kids might call the teacher's pet, right? The ones that do the right thing, listen to what the teacher says. But then you have the bad kids in the class that want to act up. They'll start up as soon as the teacher leaves, right? Start throwing paper at each other, shooting spitballs, whatever. You got those 2 kids saying, guys, calm down. The teacher's right down the hallway. We shouldn't be doing this. Teacher comes back and sees the whole class in disarray. Even the good kid trying to, stop everything, even though it's still going crazy. And the teacher will say, what's going on in here? I left the classroom for 2 minutes. This is what happens. Everybody's staying in for recess, right? Or nobody's going to the class trip, or whatever the judgment is. You get the 2 good kids saying, well, hold on, Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, I don't want to hear anything from anybody. Everybody is going to get this judgment. The whole class has to face that punishment because you're supposed to be your brother's keeper, right? You're supposed to, encourage your neighbor next to you to do the right thing. To know that the rules still stand, even if, the teacher's not directly present. We as a nation have to face this. That's why you read throughout the scriptures, you read about our righteous brothers and sisters. They won't be on some, Israel did this, Israel, you guys did this. They always say, we, us, we sinned. Even though they individually are righteous, they acknowledge the sin of the nation as a whole. And as a whole, the nation has to be punished because the whole nation is supposed to be doing the right thing. If the nation does the wrong thing, that thing's supposed to be rooted out. But when you have the majority of the nation going off, while you have a remnant that still seek the commandments of the Most High, they all go into captivity. And we're all here in America, right? Or throughout the Americas mainly. Even though you had some of us that were righteous in the midst, just like now you have the remnant of us waking up now, yet we're all in captivity, all under the hand of the oppressor. Just as an example, just to see a righteous prophet use the pronouns we and us, not you and them, showing that we face this together. You can read Jeremiah chapter 3. Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 25. He was a righteous prophet, but even look at how he says it. Same as this brother here, as part of this family that's facing the torment. And Brother Pafak, if you could read that, and then we'll continue on. Jeremiah 3 and 25.
You give it.
Jeremiah chapter 3 in verse 25.
Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 25 says, we lie down and our shame and our confusion. We are converted us.
That's covereth.
Oh, we are covered us, for we have sinned against the Lord of God.
Oh,
Our God, right. We and our father from our youth, even unto this day, have not obeyed the voice of the Lord our God.
Right. So you see, he's saying we, our, even though he himself is righteous. He's not saying, yeah, you Israelites that are wicked, you guys sin, not me. Right? Because he even acknowledges himself, even though he seeks after the Lord his God, he knows that he's not perfect.
Right.
Remember, the scripture said that what? There's not a just man upon the earth that doeth good and sinneth not. Right? So even when we seek after righteousness, we know we still slip up every now and then.
Right.
And of course, you have our people that willfully just go against the commandment.
Amen.
But even for those of our people that seek the Lord, we know we still make mistakes. Right? Whether it was back then or now. So back in 2 Maccabees 7, I'll read 18 again, and then we'll continue on. 2 Maccabees chapter 7, in verse 18, it says, after him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die said, be not deceived without cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our God. Therefore, marvelous things are done unto us. Right? Because this is not, a usual thing, right? To undergo this kind of suffering like this. Like we've been reading about throughout the Maccabees, the things that the Greeks did to the people, right? It says in verse 19, but think not thou that takest in hand to strive against God, that thou shalt escape unpunished. Right? So once like we've been talking about, don't think that this is not going to go unanswered. Don't think that you laying hands upon us and putting us to death is not going to be judged. A lot of our people look at things carnally and say, oh, look at the oppressor. Look at all the things that they do and they're getting away with it. Nah, Most High sees all these things. We just don't understand that what these things are meet or right for us to face as a people because we have not upheld our end of the bargain with the Most High. We as a nation have not kept his law. That's why we're always on the news. That's why we're always the worst statistics, right? That they make a mockery of us in TV, in movies, and in music. Right? These things are all supposed to be showing us, wow, the Most High is not a liar. Well, all these things in Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26 have happened the same way he said they would, even in 2018, because we didn't keep his commandments.
Deuteronomy 28:16.
No, Leviticus 26. I'm just quoting those chapters. It's not a link up. We should just know those chapters that where we go to read what? The covenant or the agreement that we have with the Most High.
Deuteronomy 28:26.
I'm saying don't write it down.
Okay.
We should know that those chapters are the chapters that go into what? The blessing or the curse if we either kept the Most High's commandment or broke the Most High's commandment. You understand? The whole, Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26, those are key chapters you read to see, okay, if we kept the commandments, what would happen? If we broke the commandments, this is what happened, right? I'm just making a reference to those. So that's been the case from back then up until right now today. So it shows that the Most High, he's a man of his word. But at the same time, remember, when it comes to the heathen, you can link this with 19, that, and this shows the Most High's love for us, even when the Most High uses them to punish us, right? As like a scourge, so to speak, he'll use the nations and take us in captivity as a way of punishment. It's still a judgment upon those nations for even doing it, for even laying a hand upon us. That's where scriptures like Psalms 104 come in. I'll read this. Psalms 104, just write it down. Psalms 104, I'm going to read verse 14 and verse 15. I'm sorry, Psalms 105, verse 14 and 15.
105 now, right?
Yeah, not 104. Psalms 105, 14 and 15.
Right.
Like I said, just write it down. You don't have to get it. Just scratch out the 4, put a 5.
Okay.
Psalms 105 in verse 14. It says, he suffered no man to do them wrong. Yeah, he reproved kings for their sakes. Verse 15, saying, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm. See that? So kings get reproved for the Most High's sake, for them trying to harm the prophets, right? Harm the children of Israel, right? Whom all the prophets come out of. So just to show the Most High's love to us, even when we get punished for doing wrong to the Lord, it's still a punishment to the nations for even taking us into captivity. It just shows that the Most High never intended for them to rule, even though he's given them time to rule, just to show us how it should be, right? Or to edify us. And that what? In the law, it was always meant for them to serve us. It tells you in the law that they're supposed to be our inheritance forever, them and their children, right? That they're for a possession. That's the role that they play. Now here we are, 2018, looking up to them, trying to be like them as fools.
Right.
Where we're the one everyone's supposed to be looking to for advice, for guidance, for counsel, for wisdom, not just for a cheap thrill or for entertainment purposes. We're so much more than that. But we belittle ourselves through breaking the Most High's law, trying to do things our way. Now we're the joke of the earth, right? Nobody takes us seriously.
Or just like the same thing with you.
Say what?
Like a football game, like so every time they try to win, someone will be going down.
Interesting comparison.
Fine example.
All right, so let's continue on. In verse 20. So 2 Maccabees chapter 7 and verse 20, it says, but the mother was marvelous above all and worthy of honorable memory. For when she saw her 7 sons slain within the space of one day, she bare with a good courage because of the hope that she had in the Lord. Right? So now her sons being slain before her eyes. We just read that from verse 1 on down. But all the while she's encouraging her sons to die manfully, right? Before the face of this oppressor of the Greeks. Yeah, the Greeks are the ones that are in power now.
Right.
They wanted to get them to eat the swine's flesh. And they wouldn't do it. Just like we read last time in Maccabees about the old man Eleazar. They're trying to get him to do the same thing. They saw that he was an older, influential man. They said, we can get him to compromise his values and do what we do, then other people will follow suit. Like we read in the previous chapters of Maccabees, they knew to what? You want to always get the key influential people that the people look up to. That'll make their jobs easier. They can get them to, eat what they eat, dress how they dress, practice how they practice, right? It'll make it easier, right? So now look at this, where we know it's a natural mother's instinct to protect her young, right? No matter what age, right? She'll go all out to protect her children. But now look at the level of spirituality that she has, to where she knows that the true way to protect her sons is to make sure they stand for the Most High, instead of her wanting to protect them physically for her own sake, right? That speaks volumes for her character, right? We have her record here to be inspired by. Let's continue on to verse 21.
Yeah. She told her son, regardless of what you want to do, so the Lord give you so on each fine.
Yeah, that's what we've been reading. Verse 21. Yeah, she exhorted every one of them in her own language. So there it is again, like the other son, right? Just to hit home when it says that their own language is like them speaking one with another according to their language, their custom, right? Establishing those roots even stronger to their righteous heritage that they come from, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that promise that he made to them. It says, filled with courageous spirits and stirring up her womanish thoughts with a manly stomach, she said unto them, I cannot tell how ye came into my womb, for I neither gave you breath nor life, neither was it I that formed the members of every one of you. Right? So now she's speaking on, of course, the natural process of a woman conceiving, but now she's saying that what? It wasn't her that allowed you to develop even within the womb, right? She's giving credit to who? He who makes it all possible. That she would give birth to all of them. It says in 23, but doubtless the creator of the world, who formed a generation of man and found out the beginning of all things, will also of his own mercy give you breath and life again, as ye now regard not your own selves for his law's sake. Right? So these are heavy things that she's putting out there. Right? She's acknowledging this truth even while under this torment of watching her own children be put to death, one by one. Right? We said it's in the space of a day, but I can only imagine this day probably seemed like months, years even, right? To watch her boys that she sees ever since they've been, at her breast, to be tortured this way. It's probably felt like years for her, years of torment, just watching this, right? But in her spirit, still knowing that they're going to be better off in the end because of the choice they made at the hands of this death they face. It says in 24, now Antiochus, thinking himself despised and suspecting it to be a reproachful speech, while the youngest was yet alive, did not only exhort him by words, but also assured him with oaths. So remember, this is the king of the Greeks at this time, right? Who was there during this scourging. He still had the youngest son that's left, right? Out of all the boys that were examined and killed, right? We're to see what's going to happen. Let's read it. We said there's one son that hasn't been killed at this point. Let's read on and see what actually takes place. So let's see what they have in mind for the youngest. 24, now Antiochus, thinking himself despised and suspecting it to be a reproachful speech, whilst the youngest was yet alive, yet not only exhorted him by words, but also assured him with oaths, he would make him both a rich and happy man if he would turn from the laws of his fathers, and that also he would take him for his friend and trust him with affairs. So this youngest, he said, okay, your big brothers aren't here anymore, right? Let me see if I can bribe him, right? Give him gifts. Say, hey, look. This is a horrible thing that you're going through here. All your older brothers are dead. Here's what we'll do. I'll give you this. I'll give you riches. I'll give you honor, right? I'll even let you, get a job by my side, right? Give him all these perks, right? To see if he can get him to what? Break his laws, break the oath of his forefathers, right? Go against the commandments. Take something of less value, right? And making it seem as though it has more value than his custom, his law, the statutes, the commandments of the Most High. This is where values really come in. Your value system really matters as far as what you hold dear, what you hold is important, right? For people of a baser sort, they would say, yeah, okay, I don't want to die like that, sure. But let's see what his choice was. Let's see if he was like his older brothers. Like it says in Proverbs, right? For respect of persons is not good. It says, for a piece of bread that man will transgress, right? You got folks that'll sell out for a piece of bread. Yeah, exactly. But they didn't take into account what Christ said, right? Which was already said by Moses in Deuteronomy. Man shall live by bread only, right? So you see, he's trying to bribe this young man. Let me read on in verse 25. But when the young man would in no case hearken unto him, the king called his mother and exhorted her that she should counsel the young man to save his life. So now they're going to try to get to her to get to him. Right. Come now, my lady. You got one son left. We're taking all your other sons, right? Talk some sense into him, right? Mm-hmm. Just get him to eat the swine's flesh. What's the big deal, right? Look at all these things I'm going to give him. Why not, right? I'm giving you the deal of a lifetime, right? You know, how carnal men think, right? But now her and her family are thinking beyond what this carnal man can give them. They're thinking beyond. They know what the Most High has already promised them, which no man can give them.
Like the movie 300, yeah. I want it all. I want it all, you know.
Talking about the what Quasimodo do, right? Mm-hmm.
And also like Judas is like, yeah, you know, what you gonna give me?
And it's funny you mentioned Judas Iscariot because even in the end, he realized the wrong of his choice, and reached out to still give the money back. He didn't want it anymore. And even the the Pharisees were like, "Dude, I'm not messing with that either." They had to bury their 30 pieces in what was that field of blood they called it? You know, hold on to that money, keep that in the temple. They knew that was dirty money, right? Yeah, blood money, exactly. I don't want that. As it says in the scripture, filthy lucre, which, you know, lucre it's just a Latin word, just means money. Mm-hmm. So it says, but when the young man, verse 25 again, but when the young man would in no case hearken unto him, the king called his mother and exhorted her, she should counsel the young man to save his life. He don't realize that she is saving his life. She saved her other sons' lives too by encouraging them to do the right thing.
And he told him that they told
Because she knows that they're going to live forever because they didn't save their own life to sin. It says, but when he had exhorted her with many words, she promised him that she would counsel her son. Right? So she said, okay, fine, I'll counsel him. Now let's see what she says. Verse 27, but she bowing herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, spake to her country, spake in her country language to this manner, rather on this manner. So she laughed him to scorn, right? He might have thought that, you know, he got the way on her. He said, okay, she's got her last son. Surely she's not going to want to see him die too. She's going to talk some sense into him, right? As far as he sees it. But let's see what she says. Exactly. Spake in her own country language on this manner. O my son, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee suck 3 years, and nourished thee and brought thee up into this age, and endured the troubles of education. Right? So her being there ever since he was young, rearing him, steering him, right? Teaching him. I beseech thee, my son, look upon heaven and the earth, and all that is therein, and consider that power made them of things that were not. And so was mankind made likewise. So just reviewing the things she already taught him about how things came to be, right?
Right.
You know, it was classic in Israel for us to learn the creation, right? To learn Genesis before, you know, we started to learn about, you know, Leviticus and the sacrificial laws and things like that. It says, verse 29, fear not this tormentor, but being worthy of thy brethren, take thy death, that I may receive thee again in mercy with thy brethren. Wow. Just let that soak in, man. Her last son left. She watched her other sons be tormented and killed. But now her last son, she still said, to what? Go and die valiantly before the hands of these Greeks, since we're powerless before them, because our Father in heaven has something better for us on the other side. Wow. That's something else. We all have this power in us. We all have this choice that we can make when faced with difficulties we think that we can never overcome.
Told him when her son passed away, the oldest son, right? He had coached him as a little boy that he seen what happened.
Yeah.
This is just a surprise.
Well, they were to meet their end this way. But she's saying, given the situation that they're in now, just go back to all the things that we've been talking about, and remember who the Most High is and what He does for them that love Him. even when faced with situations like this.
Okay. That was the prime example she gave to her son?
Yeah.
That she spoke to him?
Right, that's what we're reading.
Mhm.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Verse 30. While she was yet speaking these words, the young man said, Whom wait ye for? I will not obey the king's commandment. I will obey the commandment of the law that was given unto our fathers by Moses. So now we even see the youngest son showing forth his choice,
Right.
his righteousness,
Mm-hmm.
right? To follow the will of the Most High as his mother and his brothers have.
Right.
He's made up his own mind. 31. And thou hast been the author of all mischief against the Hebrews, who should not escape the hands of God. So now this young man calling out Antiochus, this king, and all his Greek cohorts, saying that what? You guys have been the author of all mischief against the Hebrews, referring to his people.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not escape the hands of God. 32. For we suffer because of our sins.
Mm-hmm.
So he's acknowledging the same thing. That when we as a nation sin, like we read in Jeremiah 3:25,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have to face the brunt of that punishment.
Right.
But the Most High will always leave a remnant, right? They are that remnant. But when it comes to the remnant, you know, sometimes you might face the same judgment as your brothers and sisters that did wickedly.
Right.
But your resurrection is what matters, right? That's what matters. Just like we read about the disciples. Some of them, lived to old age and died that way. Some of them died martyrs' deaths, right? It was the Most High's discretion. But they all died in righteousness. That's what's key.
And he wasn't making a choice, right?
Yeah.
You know he had to die.
Mm-hmm. 33. And though the living power be angry with us a little while for our chastening and correction, yet shall he be at one again with his servants. So in the future, he's going to what? Do right by us in the end. Even though at these times, he's going to what? Chastise us for our iniquity. He knows that in the end, he's still going to save or deliver Israel, right? We discussed in past services about the Most High was going to still what? Choose Israel, set us up on our own land, right? Give us all the glory and honor he intended from the beginning.
Time comes.
Mm-hmm. It says, but thou, O godless man, back to Antiochus, and all other most wicked, be not lifted up without a cause, nor puffed up with uncertain hopes, lifting up thy hand against the servants of God. We read in Psalms 105, 14 and 15, right? That what? He reproved kings for their sake, saying, touch not mine anointed, cause my prophets no harm, right? And they're going against that, these Greeks, with their king. 35. For thou hast not yet escaped the judgment of almighty power, who seeth all things. Right? So just picture this scene, right? A mother who, with her 7 sons, she's lost all of them except her youngest. Her still, right? After seeing that, encouraging her youngest to stand true for Most High. Now she's watching her own son pretty much own the king of the Greeks, saying, yeah, you guys are finished for what you guys are doing. Most High is going to destroy you for what you've done to our people, right? He's going to deliver us. And for this king to witness this young Hebrew boy pretty much, owning him, telling him off, right? As far as what's going to come to him for these things. Let's try to imagine this scene as if you were there.
He's speaking his own mind, young folks.
Mm-hmm.
You know that he's going to follow down with his brothers, and be the Almighty God,
Okay, it says in 36, for our brethren who now have suffered a short pain are dead under power's covenant of everlasting life. But thou through judgment of power shall receive just punishment, should receive just punishment, Salakia, for thy pride. See that? Like we always read, pride go before destruction, right? A haughty spirit before a fall. You may be destroying me now, but realize destruction is coming for you. Right? Thus saith the Lord.
Okay.
And notice that even though what they suffered was horrendous, but he calls it a short pain, right? Just as we see the disciples when they refer to the suffering that we undergo now, hoping to obtain Christ's kingdom, that we go through in this life, they say, oh, a little while, right? We suffer for a little while, but the whole thing is to endure whatever the Most High has for you to endure. Endure it either until you die in this life, or if Christ comes back in your lifetime, whichever comes first. To still endure it, to get through it, hoping and praying and asking that the Most High Spirit guide you, encourage you, strengthen you to take it on, because we know that through the Most High Spirit, we can go through and we can attain any and everything.
That's what I think will happen to them, because having that spirit in them, gave them strength to go ahead and die.
That's exactly what happened, because they, based on their own words, you read above, that's what they said. And that's what they were encouraged by too. As far as suffering just a little while or for a moment, you can just read these scriptures in the New Testament where we're exhorted to do the same thing. You can go to First Peter chapter 5 and verse 10 as an example. First Peter chapter 5, when you get that, you get to verse 10. And Brother Daniel, if you could read that biblical shot, First Peter 5 and 10.
Did you say First Peter chapter 5, verse 10?
Mm-hmm.
First Peter chapter 5, verse 10.
I think there's some pages turning. Folks want to read along.
Okay.
Everybody has it?
Done.
But the God of all grace, who hath called us unto eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish a strengthen, settle you.
Right. So the power of all grace, who have called us into his eternal glory by Mashiach Yahushua. Right? Same as the mother and her sons are saying. After that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you. So all these things develop our character. All these temptations that we experience now, right? All the little nuances and annoyances, family, friends, associates, co-workers, right? Things we deal with in the world, illnesses or sicknesses we may overcome, loss of possessions, right? Loss of loved ones, right? All these things are what? To what? Make us perfect, establish, to strengthen, and to settle us. All these things that we experience now, this as our forefathers and foremothers experienced in times past, right? So the idea being, okay, we go through this for now, but as long as I endure it, know why I'm experiencing it, that's supposed to be making me a better example before Christ, to develop my character, so I can take on that Christ character, take on his fruit of the Spirit more. As long as you understand that and take that to heart, you'll be just fine. And that when you're in it, it seems like it's eternity, right? The suffering of a day, it seems like an eternity, right? As far as how that pain is, right? How that suffering is weighing on you.
Right.
But they say, oh, it's just for a while, right? Just take it in stride and keep it moving.
Right.
Keep it moving, right? Consider it But at the same time, know that it's not going to be the end of you.
Mhm.
2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 17. Let's get that one now. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. When you get that, we want to go to verse 17.
2 Corinthians chapter 4.
In verse 17. And Kanyao Khan, let me get you to get that. And read that, Baba Kushar. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 17.
2 Corinthians 4, verse 17. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory.
Right. So he calls it a light affliction, which is but for a moment, right? See that time frame they're talking about there. Working for us a far more exceeding an eternal weight of glory, because the suffering that we may experience in this life, right? Short term or even long term, when compared to what we're going to have in the kingdom going forward, the everlasting life, the rulership, living forever, even going back to the heavenly realm, you know, we may even be able to translate after a certain point, right? Because we know we're going to get new bodies when Christ comes back, right? That aren't subject to sin. We're going to look at what we experienced in this life and go, oh man, you know, while that was tough in the moment, looking how small that was compared to everything that I have now, it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. Wow. Right? That's what these brothers Peter and Paul are trying to encourage us of in their letters. Right? Saying, look, I know it's tough. I know it's tough when you're in it. If you knew what we know as far as the Most High's promise for us and the kingdom going forward, you'll endure it gladly.
Remember the movie Glory?
Uh-huh.
Like Denzel Washington, he was getting whipped.
Uh-huh.
He was just like, just getting whipped. Denzel Washington. Yeah.
It was a while ago, and I don't remember all the details. I have to watch it again. And one more on this same topic, Romans chapter 8 in verse 18, and Brother Gabar, if you could read that, Romans chapter 8 in verse 18. Romans chapter 8 and verse 18. So it goes Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans. So coming right after Acts. So Romans chapter 8 and verse 18.
All right, Romans chapter 8 and 18. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us.
Kind of to the same sentiment, right? The suffering that we go through right now, it can't be compared to the glory we're going to have in the kingdom going forward. The way we're going to be set up in the land, ruling, right? Administering peace and justice throughout the earth, not dying, right? Having the nations at our whim, right? To do our bidding. Being able to, you know, all the mysteries of the questions that we have, having those things answered by Christ. Getting to reign with him, right? In the earth. Like we said, there's nothing to compare to it. Being back on our homeland, not having to worry about the things we worry about now as far as sickness, illness, right? Dying in these streets, right? Violence in the streets, being cut off, not having enough to provide for your own. All these things being answered in the kingdom, given the law being administered and the justice that it'll bring about. Like I said, we got scriptures that kind of give us an idea of what it'll be like. Right? We could look to, say, the time of Solomon's reign, right? We can have an idea of, okay, it'll be like this, but just on a higher level. right? As far as you actually having peace in the earth, because there's only like a handful of times you read about there actually being peace in the earth, where you'll see the expression written, every man shall sit under his vine tree and under his fig tree, right? You see that expression, you know, okay, you have righteous government established, right?
Mhm.
It was only short-lived, sadly, because, you know, Solomon sinned. But you can look at that time and we have an idea of, okay, it's going to be something like this, but just on a higher level, because, you know, as much power as Solomon had, and even his father David had, it tells you in the kingdom that the feeble of them, as far as Israel in that day, shall be as David. So David being able to leap over walls and break bows of steel, right? Plow through troops, like we read about in the Psalms, right?
Mhm.
If we saw that today, we would say, oh man, what's this guy? Is he a robot or something?
Mhm.
He has some kind of cybernetic implant or something. He's doing some crazy stuff.
Right.
How's he able to do that? He's just a man. He was doing that through the spirit, working through him. Or like someone like Samson. How can he do something like that with a jawbone of an ass?
Right.
Kill that many people?
Right.
One guy? Oh, something's going on here, right? But no, that was just the spirit opening up his body, you know, opening up parts of his brain so he could tap into that spiritual power that was already there to be utilized. So we don't realize the power that man and woman had before we sinned. That's just a taste of what we could do.
That's to utilize your strength.
Because we had that power in us. We just need the Holy Spirit to access it.
Bring
And the
it out.
Most High really won't give it to us unless He knows that our mind is ready to deal with it. Right.
Right.
That's where the righteousness comes in. The righteousness is like the discipline where He can trust us with certain spiritual gifts
Mhm.
like that. But they're all part of our makeup. So it's kind of silly when we talk about in today's time where, you know, Esau is like, oh yeah, the flesh is limited. We only live for a certain amount of time, not realizing that's because of the sin. Or if they do realize, not acknowledging this because of the sin. So now they want to, you know, change body parts, change stuff on a cellular level, try to make you or augment you, make you cybernetic to give you, you know, super strength.
Mhm.
Using physical things to augment yourself physically, not realizing that it's spiritual is the cause to why everybody dies.
Mhm.
So they want to create, you know, long life immortality by their own means, not realizing they could have already done it had they set this up as their means of governing. But since they haven't, they want to do things their way. They shall have their reward.
Cybernetic robots and anything, you know.
Right, because that's where we're at now, right?
Robots, yeah. I had a surgery myself. I had a robot machine. Mine was done to a robot machine.
Mm-hmm. This is
Body.
these are his, you know, makeshift miracles, if you will, right?
Mm.
Things built by man's hands, as opposed to the spirit that comes from the Most High could achieve these same things and more. Because so Romans 8:18, 2 Corinthians 4:17, 1 Peter 5:10, all linked with 2 Maccabees 7:36. As far as the short time that we have to undergo this, that it's not going to be forever.
No, that time will come sooner or later. Pretty soon, before we know it, it's going to come. So, you know, you just got to be patient.
Yeah.
And tell them, you're on the right side. Because we all, like you said, we all come short of, what's that word? We all come short of the word of God. Glory of God, because we all make mistakes, you know. Even we, in our best, that we try, some always try to come up and and prevent us, you know.
Mm-hmm. Something that I feel like I don't do enough of is just realizing that taking the power or making the most of the power that we already have already, right? It's easy to forget how we've even done miracles where, you know, we're out there teaching, healing people, you know, from the inside out through the word that we understand. We set up the healing prayers, and people that were sick now overcome sickness. So I remember the one time the sister was here, her son was missing. We set up a prayer, and he showed up the next week, right? Sound condition. I'm not sure if she remembers that, because for all the things the Most High has done for us, these miracles that he's given us personally, those folks sometimes will still go back in the world. They'll forget those things the Most High did for them, right? When we called upon him and called upon his power. And we're doing that right now. We can do all the things the disciples did and that the apostles did. right? And we're beginning to coming back into those things now as we go through these motions of keeping the laws, keeping the fruits of the Spirit, and getting used to them. The Most High is beginning to trust us more and more with His power. And we can even administer in this setup, even before we get our new bodies with Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make the most of the spiritual gifts. Let's like Paul said, let's covet the earnest gifts or the best gifts. So let's go back to this awesome story. 2 Maccabees chapter 7. I'll read 36 again. 2 Maccabees 7:36. For our brethren who now have suffered a short pain are dead under God or power's covenant of everlasting life. But thou, through the judgment of God, shall receive just punishment for thy pride. Right? We read about in Obadiah, Proverbs 16, right? 18. It says, the pride of thy heart had deceived thee, right? Talking about Esau. The proverb says, pride go before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall, right? So that being delivered unto these Greeks, as was meet, for we know their real name is Esau. We didn't. He's talking right now. This is him talking. Let's see what happens. It says 37. Oh, as far as the pride, like I said, you just write down Proverbs 16 and 18, and then Obadiah, you can say verse 3. Just as far as what I'm talking about. You don't have to get them, but just you can write them down as a reference.
Proverbs
16, 18. Also Obadiah, verse 3.
18. That's the 16th chapter.
In the 18th verse.
Okay.
Right. Which says, pride go before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. In Obadiah verse 3, speaking to Edom, for the Edomites, Esau, who the Greeks are.
Obadiah, O-B.
O-B-A-D-I-A-H.
I-A-H.
I usually abbreviate it as OBA. I take notes.
Obadiah, and what chapter and what verse?
Just verse 3, because it's one chapter.
Okay.
Obadiah verse 3, where it says, the pride of thine heart have deceived thee. Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, right? Going into them like being in the mountains all the time, being in the cold. Mm-hmm. We talk about the winter games, and all we see is Esau, right? They like that high elevation, the cold weather that's there, right?
They love cold weather.
What people do you know named after a mountain range? The Caucasus Mountains, right? You don't know anybody else named after a mountain range. That dwell in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. They build the skyscrapers, right, to achieve that height too. They don't go in the mountains, which we know is exclusive to them. Whereas other nations, when they rule, yeah, they built structures, but they mostly spread out. He likes to condense and build up, following his Babylonian father Nimrod. It says, whose habitation is high, who saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? So this physical being up high is an exercise of how he sees himself spiritually. He sees himself as above other people, and he can do whatever he wants to whoever he wants because he can. Because I say I can do it. Might makes right, right? That's been their way ever since. No matter what name they go by, whether it's Greeks, Romans, British, French, Germans, Americans, right? Mm-hmm. That's been their calling card. So yeah, just want to hone in on the pride aspect. So you can see pride even here during the time when they were the Greeks. Mm-hmm. That pride was there.
That they always depend on that.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back, because I don't want to. I just read that for the pride aspect as it pertains to Esau. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to 2 Maccabees 8. Let's read 1 and 37. Mm-hmm. 2 Maccabees 8 and 37. But I, as my brethren, offer up my body and life for the laws of our fathers, beseeching power, that he would speedily be merciful unto our nation, and that thou by torments and plagues mayest confess that he alone is power. Mm-hmm. There's your answer. Mm-hmm. So he knows what his fate is, but he said, you know what? I'm gonna take it, just like my older brothers, because we know who our God is
Right.
and what He's gonna do for us and what He's gonna do against you,
Right.
for our choice and for your choice.
Did he speak that to Antiochus?
Yeah.
Before he died?
That's what we're reading.
He spoke that to him before he knew he hadn't died.
That's what we're reading right now. Yeah, that's what's happening. He's saying this out loud in his, to him in his presence.
Right.
That's what's going on. So you can picture it in your mind's eye. 38. And that in me and my brethren the wrath of the Almighty, which is justly brought upon all our nation, may cease. Then it says, then the king, being in a rage, because he thought he was gonna, be able to get one over on the mother and her last son, right? Thinking on a carnally, like actually she wants to preserve her last son's life. They don't realize that we know that there's life beyond this physical life. So they couldn't have their way with her or any of her sons, let alone her youngest.
Right.
So it says, being in a rage, handle him worse than all the rest. Check that out. The youngest. He went in on him even worse, since he had the most words for him. Did it take him what the young man said, and considering it, the error of his way, he went in even more hardcore. And it's recorded. Imagine what he's going to face. This king. Oh, yeah, because he did the worst. Handled him worse than all the rest, and took it grievously that he was mocked. So his own pride, right? How's this little Hebrew boy, and I'm the king of the Greeks, how's he going to say this to me? Right? I got power in my hand. I got power of life and death, right? Remember what his name was, right? Antiochus Epiphanes. That Epiphanes meant God manifest on earth. Just to have a title like that, it has to speak to, okay, what kind of sociopathic, narcissistic personality you dealing with here, right? Look at themselves as, yes, I'm God manifest on earth. If I say you live, you live. If I say you die, you die. Right? Not realizing the Most High is going to put you in power. It says in verse 4, 40, so this man died undefiled. See that? So he actually did right by causing to go through the worst. He gave him a better resurrection. That's why I said it's a win, or a win some more for us if we stay in the truth. And all that this king did, Antiochus, was bring even more shame upon his own head. Done. Yeah. It says, it's interesting too. He says, so this man died undefiled. He was the youngest of the boys, but he's called a man. Because his spirit. Might as well, put a full beard in this young boy. Right?
He died like a man.
Yeah.
Remember the youngest king?
Yeah.
King.
Khan.
He became like a man,
Khan, even though he was 8 years old.
Among men. Although he was it 8 years old?
So it says, for this man died undefiled and put his whole trust in the Lord. Last of all, after the sons, the mother died. So if they said, if we got no more use for you, we took all your sons.
Greek, right?
Actually, it doesn't say.
Her son died, she probably saying,
But 42, captures it all. It says, let us be enough now to have spoken concerning the idolatrous feast and the extreme tortures. Now even the author said, okay, you got the picture, you get the idea, right? When faced with this, here's what you do. Not to go into any further detail, right? But just know that the heathen will do this when given, option to. But still know that for all the worst they can imagine, that the Most High is behind us 100% in life or death, right? In death even more so, if by their hand.
Now, after her youngest son died, and torture and everything, got the worst of the deal, she died automatically.
It just says the mother died. That's all it says.
Okay, even on the strength of that, when people have a lot of hardship, because their own self to lose their vitality and everything, you know, and sometimes that happens.
Oh yeah, it can happen, but we don't know what happened here though.
But I'm saying this is real reality.
Yeah, I'm saying yeah that
somebody,
yeah I'm agreeing with you.
you have somebody that other than white, on past hardship come real hard on him, he's not reacting the way he should in his body, causing him to die, you know.
Yeah, you definitely see that
Mhm.
people have losing the will to live,
Mhm.
especially after some kind of grief, loss of someone close to them,
Mhm.
and their will to live, it'll cause certain physical things to happen wrong in their body, and it could literally cause their death.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, ultimately, the Most High is one that's responsible. Because even for someone who goes through, severe grief, that person can still survive too.
Mhm.
Just live the rest of their days with grief. It can happen that way as well.
Right.
Esau likes to torture you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like to torture you.
Well,
But the minute that he gets a taste of that torture, he wants to cry out, "Oh, stop! Too much!" Right? He's the one that's fond of different beliefs that deal with pain being an illusion. You hear him talk about it in his music. Pain's an illusion; it's not real. Whereas pain's supposed to teach you something. It's not supposed to be ignored or pretend like it doesn't exist. Right? He wants to come up with some kind of way of blocking it out.
Yeah, I mean, with us, the punishment,
Mhm.
stuff like that,
Right.
we just execute you or probably get flogged or something like that.
Mhm.
But we don't like torture you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what do we hear about with these different shootings, right? Especially with what happened down there in Florida. These different murders of different types, whether
Mhm.
school shootings or serial murders, what have you. You always read about in their youth they were fond of mutilating animals of different kinds. So why would you want to do that to the creation? I understand, okay, hunting for food or something like that, but why would you want to mutilate the creation like that? What will give you that pleasure out of doing something like that? Makes you wonder. I want to wonder about it too much because I already know who they are, who the Most High made them to be. So that's all I need to know, really.
Now, these people might be going on the show and stuff, but because the person down in Florida, he did that. He thought about that many times before he decided to do it. Because he had made that he was going to do something. He had it in his mind he was going to do it. He just wanted to execute it and see what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot that's going on with that thing. That I think as we see more and more is going to come out about it.
Mhm.
But either way, I just made that reference just to, for us to understand when we see what the heathen will do to us, even when we surrender, that we just acknowledge them for who they are and how the Most High made them.
Because he saw mother and father said that they made a statement saying here, we had born a child which was a monster. We was living under us all our life. Never knew it.
Right. And while we see how the Most High made them, we also can see how the Most High made us and made our forefathers and foremothers. And that we're to follow that righteous example in contrast to their evil example that they set
Right.
forth in the earth by their choices, both back then and now. So we're gonna make an end here. Oh, so you had another comment?
Wow.
We're at the end of the chapter. Pathat,
Yeah.
Pathat, did you have another comment you want to make before we? Sorry.
No, I was saying that like what did I say?
Okay. We're gonna take a brief recess for a half hour to going on 12:27. So we'll come back a little bit before 1 o'clock to do the second half of the Sabbath service. So feel free to get something to eat. Something that doesn't require heat, obviously, since it's a Sabbath day.
Right.
And we'll talk to you in a half. So shalom, and we'll talk to you then.
Go on.
Question.